Oh yeah, yeah. Hey people, how you doing? Hope you're doing absolutely amazing. Hope you're doing the best ever. That would be so good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Hey peeps, how you doing? Hope everyone's doing absolutely amazing. Yeah, yeah. Right. What are people up to? Right. So I'm working on a video. Did the Freemasons build a pyramid? Now, what do you guys think? Forget about what I think. What do you guys think? Do you think the Freemasons built the Great Pyramid? And I found there's actually a huge amount of evidence that they did, and their entire organization is based on the legend that they did. But that will be in the next video, not today. What do you think of that? Anyway, so hello, Patrock. I'm young now, am I? So when I was a few kilos fatter, I was a bit, and not wearing the hat, and a little bit fatter, people were saying, like, in your youth, Charlie, when you were traveling around, this is a couple of years ago. Come on, man. So, right. Ziggy. Hello, Ziggy. How you doing? Hope you're doing absolutely amazing. Hello, Deanne. Hello, Patrock. Scratch. Hello, Scratch. Hey, Scratch. You're from last time. I remember you. Rightio. So yeah, what I said at the start, did the Freemasons build the Great Pyramid? And there's actually a great deal of evidence that they did. I'll actually spill it right now. So according to the Freemasons, a great builder was hired by Solomon called Hiram Abiff. And it occurs to me that Hiram Abiff sounds like Horemakhet, who was the Sphinx god in the New Kingdom. It sounds like Haman, the builder of the Tower of Babel in the Quran. And it sounds like Hamiunu, the builder of the Great Pyramid in archaeology. So we have these H names, and they're all similar, and so the Freemasons must be based on this ancient Egyptian tradition, which is fascinating. And of course, we know that the Jews are involved as well, because the Jews lived in Egypt. So therefore, we have the involvement with Solomon. It's quite an interesting thing, actually. Yeah. So I think there's some evidence there, and that would explain how Khufu could have built it, but he didn't build it. Egyptians didn't build it. International builders built it for him. He paid them. Lots of money, lots of De Niro. What do you think of that theory? So I've just spilled you the theory. What do you think of that? But a video more comprehensive is coming out on this subject. So, hey, Criminy Jenkins. Criminy Jenkins, you have an interesting name. It's a bit of an Artful Dodger type name, is this a real name? It's a very interesting name. So, Patrock says, Charlie has never been the same since the chocolate factory. DN says, I worked for 33 years in National Trust and Heritage. Yep, it's recycling at its best. Scoodle-doo says, evening, Charles. Evening, Scoodle-doo. Yeah. Steve Danube says, hi, Charlie. Granite boxes were poured molten rock. Yeah. Could be, mate. But I reckon my biopolymer theory is really gonna take off. I reckon that's gonna take off, but we'll see. So Throttle Addiction says, good evening, Charles. Good evening, Throttle Addiction. Ape Kills Snake says, trolls making you their bitch, Charles. No, because I'm just blocking them straight away. I don't even reply, I'm blocking them. So that, what would they think of that? Then they would check. It only hides the user from the channel, as you know. So I reckon they probably still see their comment, but they don't know they've been blocked, They're just wondering why I'm not replying. So DN says, Steve, spot on. We make it now for workshops. Patrick says, the Serapeum is where I believe the fallen ones were bound until the 1800s. Joe Kansas says, Illuminati founded on the 5th of the 1st, May Day, sides of the pyramids at 51 degrees and 51 seconds. Conspiracy equals 51 and gematria, Pythagorean cipher. You're onto it. That's it. You're onto it. There's hidden mathematical codes, as we know, in Hebrew, in the Great Pyramid. All this, the mathematical codes that have been put in the Great Pyramid seem to me to have been done by committee after committee after committee of the top minds in Egypt, the top international minds, put all their knowledge into the Great Pyramid, and they arranged it in such a way that it's the level of detail that you can discover at Giza is unbelievable. If you look at all the ancient sciences, the music and the archaeoastronomy, it's like a clue leads to a clue leads to another clue. For example, I came across one today in the book by Mark Lehner, the Giza, the complete Giza, whatever it's called, 1997. And he says he discovered that when standing at the paws of the Sphinx or the Sphinx temple, Sphinx being equinoctial, there's a clue. Equinoctial being equal day, equal noctile, equal night. You can see the sun setting, I believe it's halfway between the Khafre and the Khufu pyramid. So it's making that horizon hieroglyph, which is, of course, the name of the Khufu pyramid. And so that's a clue. So firstly, the Sphinx is equinoctial. So you have to stand at the temple on the equinox, and then you have a look and you see what the sun is doing. And there's so much archaeoastronomy there. There's so much science there. I'm going to start trying to measure the volume of the pyramid in bushels, in British units, in chains. Chains is a length. I bet it's a whole number of chains. I bet you, I haven't tried it yet. But the shaft's a whole number. I bet it's easier to measure the shafts than the size, the outer sizes, because we don't know the height because the cap's gone, and we don't know the edges because some people measure it from the edge. Some people measure it from where the outer the outer cornerstones are. You see, so someone who measures it differently will say, "Oh, I've refuted," as Petrie did. I've refuted these pyramidologists, right? Oh, sorry, I better read your stuff. So, yeah. So Louis says, same as Dubai, international builders, architects, etc. The source says, hi Charles, hi all. Ape Kill Snake says 5 + 1 is 6. Louis says, Mayday is Maida. Help me in French. 42, eh? That's the one. Criminy says, Charles, you've talked to me under my real name. I'm the one from San Antonio and talked with you. Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, that rings a bell. Martha Lights. Yeah, that rings a bell for sure. Ziggy says Masonic initiation ceremony is the same as the ancient Egyptian ceremony depicted as Osiris receiving the dead. So you can be reborn as a Mason. Yeah, it's so cool. I found out, yeah, you're right. And I found out the initiation ceremony is actually the way Giza is laid out. That's in the next video, which should be very interesting as well. So the Masons clearly come from ancient Egypt. They are clearly actually Masons originally, and they are clearly, if they hadn't, and here's the other thing, they wear an apron. Who wears the aprons? I'll give you a second to tell me who wears the aprons. Put your comments there. Who wears the aprons? I'll tell you in a second. I'll tell you in a second who wears the aprons. Okay, while we're waiting for people to tell me who wears the aprons, other than the Masons, I'm going to read some more comments. So, Ape Kill Snake says, actually, there is this girl's channel I like where she does codes. She didn't understand the knee code. I do. They should look at the Pope has to kiss the child's knee. It's hidden in plain sight. The knee. Right. So Patrick says hertz, frequency, matter, protons, neutrons, electrons. Reinhardt von Holst says, bloody hell, I've made it to another one of your live streams. I'm strapping myself in. I'm sure it'll be a good ride. Yeah. So Knuya Beeswax says, Nanya Beeswax, are you Australian? Says, it's 6 a.m. Oh, no, okay. It's 6 a.m. in the frozen north of Minnesota. I was going to bed. Now I'm going to have it at least one more and listen to what you got to say. Marcel says, we meet again. Okay, so I asked a question a few minutes ago. Who wears the aprons other than the Masons? And that is the clue to their origin. So what you people have just told me is maids, housewives, Masons, women, Knights of Malta, Egyptians, Son of May, Knights Templar, butchers, Phoenicians. Hatchet says, I went through the 3rd degree, so yes, Hirama Biff. Patrick says Indians. Trev is joking, saying he's a troll, and then he's saying it's a joke. Okay. Not funny. I'm just kidding. So carpenters, Hermes. No. Look, guys. No. No. You're going to kick yourselves. You ready to start kicking yourselves? And I hope you don't injure yourselves too badly. Jewish priests wear the apron. They wear a multicolored cloak, a kind of apron kind of chest plate sort of thing with all these colours. And I wonder how the Freemason apron compares to this, to be honest with you guys. I really wonder. It should be interesting. So earlier on, I said you look at Hiram, then you look at the name of the Sphinx, Horem or Horemakhet, Hiram-Abiff. Hiram-Abiff is the Masonic guy, the first Mason, the first master Mason who helped to build the Temple of Solomon. Problem is, back in the day, the Jews actually lived in Egypt. So was the Temple of Solomon in Egypt? So was the Temple of Solomon the Great Pyramid? That's what I'm asking. And that will be in the next video. Someone says blacksmiths, strippers, Sumerians. You guys are really reaching, aren't you? Yeah. So so that's that. Now let's see. So Justin says hello from Tasmania. DN says you can scratch test, cut granite over poured and polymer. Cut scratches and fractures at the surface. Poured has a glaze that resists glass wheel. Try it out. Interesting. So, Ape Kill Snake says the detective who investigated Jack the Ripper was a Templar and was digging holes under the Temple Mount looking for the Ark. Right. Interesting. So Patrick says 12 stones. That would be 12 stones on the Masonic, the Jewish priest's apron. If you can, I believe you can call it. I believe it is called an apron. It's not called a breast. It's called a breastplate, but I believe it's also called an apron. I think. I'm not quite sure. Trev says I have nice pictures. Thank you so much. Yeah, my little picture area. So those cameras have allegedly taken some of those photos. You see. So I'll show you. So for example. Whoops, what am I doing? Right, so hang on. So over here we have some of my adventures in the past. So here are 3 Japanese warriors or something, right? That I got in Africa. I'm just kidding. There's Poznansky. I believe I photographed him with that. But you see, it's just a display. You know, I got these cameras, and so there's something from the 1920s. That guy is actually me in Peru. No, it's actually Ireland. I haven't been to Peru. Some more people on the top of the pyramid. An old pyramids thing, some pyramid energy. Some guy is sitting on top of the Sphinx. Yeah, I like these creepy old pictures. They're quite interesting. Over here, Loch Ness Monster. The guy in the Sphinx again, and there's another monster there. Anyway, yeah. So my dining room. So yeah. What were we saying? There's Charles in 1903. Yeah. So Hatchet says, I do not understand where you came from with the aprons. Look, I'm trying to prove the connection between the ancient Egyptians and King Solomon and the builders of the Great Pyramid. So that's what the aprons thing is all about. Because who else has got the aprons? So yeah, that's right, guys. So Fact Camp says Sumerians do as well. Thomas says greetings and good tidings from Canada. Good tidings to you too, Thomas, and greetings to you too, sir. Very interesting. Yeah. So Hatchet says napkins I put on my lap to catch my food. Thank you for that very, very excellent piece of information there. Good. Moving on from that, Joe says 12 stones represent the zodiac. What do you think of the connection between Druids and Levite priests? Who are the Levite priests again? I don't know who the Levite priests are. Sorry. You're talking the people in one of the early books of the Bible there. So Fact Camp says crushed limestone submerged in water is supposedly supposed to create an oxygen-rich environment. Ape Kill Snake says all these tourist destinations were actually for human sacrifice and all have mercury and water chambers under them and were used to throw young boys into. Yeah, interesting. Jay Lord says, I like comparing ancient rulers to ancient ones. How would you compare Scott Morrison to? Scott Morrison, eh? So he's the Australian Prime Minister. I think Scott Morrison is I reckon he's a pretty good bloke. I think he's doing his best, to be honest. I don't think he knows what to do some of the time. There you go. I don't know. No idea, guys. No idea. Just answering text. Hang on a second. Hi there. This is it. Oh, damn. Oh, I made a mistake. Oh, no. Done. All right. So, yeah. Okay. So, Patrick says, Leviticus. Levites are the tribe that live and serve at the temple, do sacrifices, blessings, and prayers, and play music like Haman. AP Snakey says, initially, we were a Lilith cult that worshipped the snake. We excuse Eve as a female and put this onto the entity of the snake. Joe Kansas says the breastplate you're talking about was also worn by druids. Werewolf says limestone plus plasma lightning equals white sulfur, Sodom and Gomorrah. Jamie Vicious says, when you have the hustle, you get the hassle, brother. AP Snakey says, what about the breastplate of stones that all the priests wore when round the ark? That is interesting. Yes, indeed, it is interesting, sir. Hatchet says, I love how you see outside the normal box and how you open your mind. It's sad how many closed minds there are. Yes, indeed, sir. It's actually called, what you're referring to actually has a name. And it's actually called, I believe it's called the Bloom scale. So the Bloom scale measures your ability to, it actually measures different people. I'll actually give you a link right now so you can see what I'm talking about. And this might help to explain, open image in new tab. This might help to explain the people you see around you. Because you just mentioned open-minded. It's because it's not open-minded. Might not be the best way to describe what we're seeing, but that's the Bloom scale right there, and it's the ability to put two and two together by yourself. People who don't have this ability are basically slaves, and you can see the difference between so many people when you. Say, for example, you can have arguments online. When you're arguing with someone who is a skeptic, you're actually arguing with a slave because that person is using conventional knowledge to argue. They're always trying to argue down. They're always trying to argue you down to a smaller position, you know. And often these people, if they lose the argument, they'll start gaslighting you. That's their plan B. But their plan is to make themselves bigger than you by making you smaller than them. And of course, that's how skeptics work, and that's stupid. But it's also how some academics work. They use ridicule. So yeah, that's just the way it is, I'm afraid. Yeah, yeah. So Leon the Wise says Solomon's temple was in Jerusalem. Whether or not the Ark was kept at the pyramids is debatable. But it must have been kept at the pyramids because the Ark legend goes way back in time. It's much older than the Jews. So if it's older than the Jews, where is it from? It must be from the pyramids. The Temple of Solomon was for keeping the Ark. That was what it was for, and a couple totem poles at the front, which was sacred. And they were living in Lower Egypt, where the pyramids are. That was a kind of Jewish country for a few hundred years. So I believe they must have picked up the Ark legend there, and they introduced it into there. And then I reckon what happened was, and this is what the Jewish people, the Jewish messiahs and prophets have done over the years, they would create relics and then claim to be a new messiah. So, for example, in the time of Pontius Pilate, it's recorded by history that the Sarmatian prophet, who I believe is the historical Jesus, he was going to take people up a mountain where he said there were relics of Moses at Mount Gizraim, where there was a temple. and which was presumably the older temple prior to the temple in Jerusalem. Scholars actually don't understand that Sarmatians are Jews, so they're actually not even thinking about them as being potential Jesuses, but or potential Christians, early Christians. But what I was saying was, these people would invent relics, make up relics. So, and then Pontius Pilate came on cavalry and basically killed everyone and dispersed everyone, and So, so it's definitely debatable. I mean, we don't have a time machine, that's for sure. So, Werewolf says Utah is weird. Trev says animals have the right to be in my belly. Mate, I've just gone raw vegan. Why are you telling me this, mate? Do you want me to start crying? Terry says they've done away with so many channels that the trolls have less channels to go to make their quota. Yes. Criminy says, Charles, are you familiar with the ant people from the Grand Canyon? I've never heard of this story. Sounds like it's something from the 50s in an old movie. Was it Terry, the Greek man? Was Terence or Terry or something? Just joined, but judging from the title, let me tell you that a lot of people are just bitches. You're absolutely right. Yes. Patrick says, waiting for an abyss to open in Utah where dragons fly out of. Scratch says, critical thinking. Heretic Vegan Scum says, Trev, what about human animals? He's got you there because humans are clearly animals. He wins the argument. Patrick says, I am criminy. Oh dear, it's just, okay. Ape Kill Snake says, well, Enki believed in humans and fled to America in a hummingbird craft. He was chased by Enlil, a dragonfly craft. Enlil really is Lilith, and she was the bad one they locked away in the pyramids. Stephen says, Western Australia is quite fascinating regarding possibility of prior development of civilization. Are you planning on further research? Thanks. I know nothing about what's there, mate, except for the Bradshaw art, which has been, as we know, it's been burnt to death in the last few years, and 50% remains or something. That's what I read on Wikipedia. Oh, and apparently someone told me that they found a necklace. Yeah, a viewer of the channel said they were a miner in Western Australia, and he said he told me this a few years ago. He said he found a crushed gold necklace inside the mine, and he showed it to the boss, and the boss. And he told the boss, this belongs in a museum. This is from some lost civilization. And he was told to mind his own business and shut his mouth. So there you go. So Vondeloo says Solomon was a magician. Miles Flynn says the Sphinx was a fountain. That's why the walls show so much erosion. The head suffered the most degradation. That's why it had to be replaced. You're right. I think you're right. The head is clearly different rock because it's a different color. It's been treated or something has happened. Yeah. Andre Louis says the Ark equals the pyramids. Think about that. The Giza Plateau was an island. Have you ever thought about it being the lost Atlantis? I haven't, but that's a really good idea. Jami Vicious says the petroglyphs all over the western US seems to depict those ant people. Oh, that's an interesting one. Werewolf says Enlil is what NASA calls the solar wind. Now that's very interesting. Right, so Reinhard von Holst says, in my second novel, oh, that's right, you have novels. Feel free to put your link there. In my second novel, Noah's Pit Stop, one of my characters was based on the character who used astro-shamanism. Have you heard of that? The character was based on Franco Santoro. Patrock says, I'm part Cherokee, part Blackfoot. Lots of Americans are part Cherokee. You guys are really mixed in with the American Amerindians, aren't you? Heretic Vegan Scum says, okay, he's talking to Trevor. That's good. Judy says, good evening. Good evening, good evening. Yeah, this is great. So about the title of this clip, this there's just crazy people out there. There's abusive people. I don't know what's going on. I bet you will get an abusive person today in this chat because I had 2 last time in the chat. Unbelievable. I don't know where these people are coming from, really. But anyway, here we go. Right, so Leon the Wise, but I have no hesitation in being rude back to them because these guys have no power in their life. They're losers. That's why they're trying to do this online. Anyway, so Leon the Wise says, no, Ark is a box, not the pyramids. Have to adhere to biblical narrative once in a while. Well, that was a bit smart mouth, Leon the Wise. There we go. So the other guy got told. There we go. Leon the Wise by Leon the Wise. Hatchett says, Yakin on Boas. Okay, he's asking Joe. So Yakin and Boas are the 2 pyramids. No, sorry, the 2 totem poles, or the 2 poles, or the 2 pillars in front of the original Temple of Solomon, and possibly the later Temple of Solomon, of which there is only a wall, if that is from the Temple of Solomon that Herod made around just before the time of Christ, or something like that. So, here we go. Oh, are you gonna be mean? So Nenad says, why you learn fake history? Okay, he's joking. Okay, so Nanya Beeswax says, are you none of your business? You changed your name. Nanya Beeswax says, I believe ancient Egypt was built long before Moses. Ape Kill Snake says, what about the guy who has a pet jumping spider trained to give paw? How is that consciousness in a brain so tiny? Alwyn says, come on, Alwyn, where is Al? Okay, it's way up there. Were the elongated skull people are the ones creating the pyramids around the world? Heretic says, have you seriously gone vegan, Charles? Yeah, I've done it for the past 2 months, trying to lose weight. So now, past week, I've totally, you might notice I'm a little bit skinnier. I'm totally raw for the past week. So I'm just eating raw. And I want to go back to skinny because I looked like 10 or 20 years younger just a few years ago, just by being skinnier. So what's the point being fat? It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. I prefer to be skinny and, fit into, I'm starting to fit into these, these jackets. You see what I mean? Looking better. So why not, yeah. So Werewolf says, I like to think the Ark is a plasma speaker. Now, that is a very interesting way of putting it. Yeah. So Ape Snake says, I think the ant people, so these are the people in the Grand Canyon, I believe, have a lot to do with Venus tore up the solar system and gave Saturn its rings. Now, is this channel information, or did you do your due diligent research and come up with this, AP Snake? I want to know. We want to know. Werewolf says, there was a city or kingdom called Anunnaki. Heretic Vegan Scum says, I like the idea of God as Logos. I agree with you. Look, obviously the universe looks like a brain, so isn't that God? But I put this to people, and then they say, well, hang on a sec. The religious people say that God created the universe, so God is not the universe. So, okay, the brain's suddenly not God. But when we think about God, we point up there. That's the universe, right? I mean, there's not, we're not pointing outside. We're actually pointing up at the universe. So what are we actually talking about in our definitions here? This is a bit complicated. Right, so Cazador says, evening, Chucky. Evening, Cazador. Trev says, because God created us with his DNA. He's inside us. That is indeed profound. Joe Kansas says, I was asked on a date I'm not reading that. No, I'm not reading that. So Trev says, I believe God created us with his DNA and God was a good alien, or WE. What's that? What's a W/E? Jim says, my belief is that the Ark was at the Great Pyramid. When entering the temple in Jerusalem to enter the Holy of Holies, you had to be below the mercy seat. Or you would die. When entering the so-called king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, you had to be in crouched position like being below the mercy seat. I think you're onto something, Jim. That is astounding. Werewolf says, thanks. Magnets are my speciality. And Werewolf has been saying some profound things about cosmology. Scratch says, my last job was as a miner. All right, cool. Jarmy Vicious says, the DNA is in the dust, but just whose? AP Snakey says, well, the good in us probably comes from the larger brains inherited from Neanderthals. That's right, because there are people, like there are lowbrow people out there. Isn't that true? There are lowbrow people. And the lowbrow people are different to the highbrow people. But I'm not making any judgments or anything. But you're right about that. Like, humans are different from each other. So Patrick says, was 500 million Indians here living in peace and cleanliness until the 1500s? According to charts I saw in the book 1491, which is obviously 1 year before Columbus, and apparently if you look at apparently the Mexico City population was there when Columbus arrived, and then for the next few hundred years it kept cascading downwards, and now it's returned to where it was when Columbus arrived. And part of the evidence for this is a book called, it's called, I read it about 10 years ago. It's something, it's written by a guy who was a diplomat in Mexico in the 19th century and traveling around the Yucatan. And he had a brilliant artist with him. He was the first one to sketch the Mayan ruins in the Yucatan. And this guy said, he said the Mexicans are actually, if he had known how fierce and sanguinary the Mexicans were, he would have been a bit more careful when arguing with them, because he argued ferociously with them. And but my point was, he saw all these abandoned churches. They're the ruins of abandoned churches that the Spanish Empire had built centuries earlier. And the thing is, why are the churches abandoned? Well, depopulation. And the depopulation didn't just stop with a few diseases. It kept going. There was for the American natives, there was disease after disease after disease after disease, and it was or slavery or whatever. Something kept killing them until the 19th century and the 20th century, when population started to rise again. And I think that's why white people were able to conquer the world, because white people were in a kind. There were plenty before. It was easy, but now it's changing, isn't it? So yeah. So I'll just thank you so much, Hatchet, for your contribution. He says, keep up the streams. Love to interact and chat. Keep them up. Lovely. Nice. So, Patrick, if I skip any, I'm sorry. Chip Willman. Hi, Charles. Hi, Chip. How you doing? Yes. So Chip is actually a good. He's a good friend. He's shown me a few ancient things. So Lady Zaga says it's actually Anunnakine. Anunnakine, that sounds like an alkaline. That sounds like a chemical. So Brenda Lowe says, we are the gods' blood cells. AP Snake, who's saying a lot of things, says, I forget the relationship between Enoch and Jedi now, but it is fascinating and how used in the films. And by that, he means, I think it is fascinating that Lucas used the term Jedi when there was a strange man from the desert called Jedi. Okay, interesting. Right. Heretic Vegan says, shoot, I've only got 3% battery. Rashad says, there's a new theory of the universe as a fractal structure of infinite black holes, each containing other universes. You know what? I've come up with a new theory about new theories about universe being a fractal structure of infinite black holes, each containing other universes, because these mathematicians come up with something like this every 2 days, you know, and something new and overriding the other ones. You know, it's incredible. Andrew Louis says, the Egyptians found those ancient megaliths and put their name on it. If I wrote my name on it, it's mine. Steve says, you look good, Charles. Keep up. Yes, thanks, Steve. Nice. Hatchet says, in my early years, I was sleeping under a tree and watched the universe being created. It was the scariest thing I have ever seen. Hatchet, are you Buddha? This is a very interesting thing. Very interesting statement. Trev says he's reading us comments like he's reading a novel. I read a novel a lot faster than this. So AP Snake says Yahweh is relationship to when God spoke. I am that I am. Shem Ways says we are not our brains, yet the spirit interfacing through it. You're onto something. You're onto something. DL Busters says, hi, Doc Charles. I have a Polish friend who is a sound technician. I also have a Czech one too. Nice. Miles says, have you ever seen that if you extrapolate the Nazca lines around the planet, they converge at Angkor Wat? I've never seen that. You can post a link. Feel free to post a link to that here. That sounds absolutely astounding. Vander Hayes says, hey, Charles, report on the COVID demonstrations and so on. It's related to the suppressed knowledge. Yeah, there seem to be, and since you sound Dutch, there seem to be quite a few demonstrations in the Netherlands, don't there? I mean, it's incredible. People are standing up. Patrick says, lowbrow people are fun, but dangerous and stupid. You're right. Yeah. So Mac Golf says 3 brains, guts, heart, and brain. Andre Louis says, why would Egyptians bury boats, arcs, next to the pyramids? That's an interesting one. I was just reading Mark Lehner's book on Giza, written in 1997. And as we know, that's a very comprehensive book. And he has suggested, people have said that this was for taking the pharaoh to Hades. But he has said that he doesn't believe this is the case, and he's giving a conventional view, and he's saying it doesn't seem like it's the case because they're not part of the pyramid. They're away from the pyramid. Are they a fleet? Maybe. I mean, there's multiple ones of them. What's going on? We don't know. Criminy says, Charles and everyone, good night. I'm off to bed. I haven't slept since sometime yesterday. I'm close to being up 24 hours and I'm exhausted. Criminy, you definitely need to hit the hay. Have a nice sleep. Mac Golf says, go into your hearts. We're in a pole shift now. Javel says, trolls, must be that they secretly love you. Zeph says, care for others' approvals. You're quite right. We don't need to get approval from other people. We're fine, you know. That's just the way it is. Yeah. Okay, I might skip a few so I can get down to the latest comments. Max says, ye are gods, but you have to submit to the love that is coming in. Acid Cube says, we are indeed on the inside of our biosphere petri dish, and our creator is debating whether to scrap yet another failed experiment. I hope he doesn't scrap us too soon. That would be pretty bad. Crypto says, love your show. Ape Kills Snake says, who is a prolific commenter, and we always love to see what he has to say, he says, crazy that can take a plane and in a day fly around the planet that is the only consciousness in the whole universe. It is crazy, isn't it? As Steve Danoob says, Charles, do you prefer Star Trek or Star Wars? I think we were arguing this in high school. I really like Star Trek Original. I think it's better than Star Wars because Star Wars is, 3 movies? And but there's also Star Wars books which are very interesting as well. I used to read those. I've literally read maybe 100 Star Trek novels. And I've read so many of the novels, and they're all the same plot. Basically, mostly Deep Space Nine and Next Generation. Mainly, the plot is in the novels that the captain is in an impossible situation. It cannot be resolved, and the space station or spaceship is about to blow up. And then a Deus Ex Machina intervenes, and for a little bit of cleverness, he brings something new in and twists something upside down, tells the engineer what to do, and saves the day. And that's all the Star Trek novels have this same plot. Star Trek Original is really good. And Star Trek, was it the one with the whales? Star Trek 5, the one that I loved that movie as a child. I thought this is an incredible movie, So that's my favorite one. And also DS9, But the other ones are not, just boring to me. So how about you? So Jonathan Ryle says, maybe there is a fractal structure of infinite theories. Right. Okay, I might just skip a few comments. So Mac Golf says, you need to be in your star forge. It's your heart. Remember, Mart. Okay, Lance Ward says, been wondering, after the flood, where did two other different phenotype come from? It was just Noah and his family, according to the book. Yeah, I mean, you're right, because if it was just Noah and his family, there would be they would start looking like I'm not going to say that. Someone said they're from Tasmania, I think. I'm so sorry. Judy says, Charles, what are your views on Egypt's younger lady, Tut's mother, being Nefertiti? Who is Egypt's younger lady? Do you have a name for this person? Thanks so much. Right, okay, Patrick, good. So, and Steve Hall says Star Trek, the original series, rocks. Yes, it's a very good 60s TV. It's like it's straight back to the 1960s. It's so mysterious and whoa, and when they show like a computer, the computer sort of screeching from a faraway place. It's just mysterious, when the computer's talking to them. Yeah. So Matt Golf, who's giving us a lot of sermon type messages, says, you are the book, the living waters. Begin to read your lives. Use the astrology. It will help you find what you came here to do. You don't need any dead book. Werewolf says, the Kobayashi Maru is a training exercise in the fictional Star Trek universe designed to test the character of Starfleet Academy cadets in a no-win scenario. I see. Yeah, you see, the problem with Star Trek, it sort of defies the laws of probability quite considerably, doesn't it? Because no-win scenarios generally, they're called that for a reason, aren't they? I mean, yeah. And I love it. I love it when, Werewolf likes Next Generation. I don't like Next Generation because it's so slow-paced. I just can't watch it. There's no drama in it. It's like touchy-feelies, They're always talking about their touchy-feelies to me, but, Anyway, AP Snake says, I love where Kirk goes. He rigged that test. Cyrus Voss says Cain. It comes from Cain. Cain's ancestry lived on through a woman. married to one of Noah's sons. Miles Flynn says Star Trek Day of the Dove from season 3, one of the few episodes hidden behind a paywall, foreshadows our current situation with press manipulation and misinformation, worth the $2. Andre Lu says, "Have you ever done DMT?" No, sir. I'm very anti-drug because it's you know, it's I don't know. It's sort of hurts your productivity just a tiny bit. Louis says trolls means you're getting famous, bro. Yeah. So Max says, love what you do. You will get messages every time you follow the synchronicity. It's your higher speaking to you now. You're so true. It's amazing. AP Snake says, I like the lines when the needs of the few or the one outweigh the needs of the many. And in the other movie where Kirk says, excuse me, what does God need a spaceship for? Aren't you God? Peter says, love and respect to all from Dublin, Ireland. Thank you so much, Peter. And you have a beautiful city there. Actually, Dublin looks a lot like, I believe it looks a lot like 19th century Melbourne used to look, or what Launceston still looks like. And it's the potato famine, unfortunately, has preserved a lot of what you have there. You know, all the Georgian stuff is still there. That's incredible. Yeah. Luke says, "G'day, kissy kissy." You want me to kiss you? So Magic Magnus Cumbria says, "Coffee and cannabis is the way, Charles." That's an interesting combination. Lance says, "I know, just ask certain questions." Okay, he's talking to Mac. Ask certain questions so that more people can think, then become aware of the BS that has been sold to them. AP Snake says, "I used to date a girl from Cork. I have been to Dublin. Nice place." Yeah. There's a Cork. Is Cork on the bottom? So there's a joke between those two cities, isn't there? There's a joke. The joke is something like, oh damn, what's the joke? There's a joke. How do you know? Okay, it's a Dublin joke. How do you know people are from Cork? They'll tell you about it. Is that the joke? I don't know. Anyway. Okay. So Reinhard von Holst says, how many Klingons does it take to change a light bulb? 10.1 to change it, and then another 9 to berate him for performing such a menial task, since he's part of a proud warrior race. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, it does get tiresome, doesn't it? I find it very tiresome watching Star Trek sometimes when they just keep going on and on and on. It's like, you know, we already know how these different races operate. We know that they show Klingons all the time. They never show Romulans. It's very rare to see them, isn't it? That's what I don't like so much. But it's so tiresome that they have to keep negotiating around all their racial characteristics. That the Klingons are all, they're all like they keep going on about how much of a warrior, and this person's a coward. You know, we know, but it's never ending. Anyway, right. So, yeah. So, Joe says, any comments about Druids and Judaism? Seems like it's all connected. I haven't seen any, but I believe you are correct. For example, it is now known that the ancient Jews had books about how to make stone circles, as was proven by the authors of Uriel's Machine, and it's in that book, Uriel's Machine. The ancient Jews had books explaining the purpose of stone circles, how to make stone circles, and they did these experiments. And based on these experiments, they found what the megalithic yard was. The megalithic yard to them, I'll tell you my version though. The megalithic yard to them, I believe it's 0.8 meters. So what it actually is the sky divided into 366 degrees, and they noticed that a string, a megalithic yard long, does 366 swings of a pendulum, which takes a star along which star travels one on 366 degrees. And then they say the 360 was done for convenience, because to make it simpler, it was moved down from that. Now, so that's their version of where the megalithic yard comes from, the length of the string required for that experiment. However, I read today in the book by Mr. Tompkins from the 70s on the Great Pyramid, The Secrets, that I believe it was a guy in the early 20th century. He was an explorer. What was his name? I forget. But he said at Giza, if you hold a meter rule on the solstice on the 21st of June, the shadow at midday, and I believe that must be the winter solstice, the summer solstice, the shadow is 0.8 meters long, a megalithic yard. So there is so much at Giza. They might have even used the latitude to standardize measures. These people had massive heads, massive brains. They were so smart, just unbelievable people. Anyway. Right. Okay. Yeah. So Patrock says Volgons are my favorite. Love their poetry. Indeed, the Volgons from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which was an absolutely unbelievable series in the 70s. That was literally one of the best series ever. That was so interesting. Yeah. And I love how it finished up in the Stone Age too. I watched that on YouTube a few years ago again. Yeah. Okay. But that's a very nice. That's very nice indeed. Right. Hey Charles, how's the new pad going? Moved in yet? So I have borrowed money to buy that. So I'm trying to rent it out. So I'm not moving in. So Anyway. Yeah. Finton O'Cleary, who has a very Irish name, says, never attempt to build an IKEA bookshelf on shrooms. That is some very sage advice indeed. Cazador says it's not even a herb, so he's talking about cannabis. Okay, I guess. Luke says, Luke's talking to this lady in here, I guess. Werewolf says, as we learn in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, James T. Kirk was the only cadet in Starfleet history to ever beat the Kobayushu Maru by reprogramming the simulation so that it was possible to win. He doesn't seem that clever, does he? The actor, but he is in the script. Yeah. Q from Star Trek is now playing with our planet. Right. So Ape Snake says the sex cult is also a code in the middle word of the Bible no one identifies. Okay. Dog barking outside. Robin Hood 1966, hello, says, hey Chucky. Hey, how you doing? And I believe you just messaged me there, but I haven't looked because I'm looking at this. Says, sorry I've been off Twitter lately, having a lot of chaos I'm dealing with in the USA. Okay, you're someone else. Okay, but I know you as well. With the turmoil of the election process, we'll be back on within a few days. We'll help withdraw. Thanks. Yeah. So, Werewolf says Nikola Tesla, 3, 6, and 9. If you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe. The 3, 6, and 9 represent the pathways that force energy, information, matter. There's a mathematician on Twitter who's actually thinking along these lines as well, I believe. But I don't know. I don't know who he is. I've forgotten. But he works with AIP, Great Pyramid, American Institute Pyramid Research, Larry Powell. So if you find Larry Powell's Instagram, you'll see this mathematician's Instagram as well. And he actually talks about how like numbers like 5 or 4. He talks about properties like humanistic type properties of these numbers that mathematicians don't bother with. So Patrick says, since 1984 met Idiocracy in 2020, I predicted Darwin Awards sequel. AP Snake says, Tesla actually means rib to create Eve, like the car's symbol is actually showing rib and crucifix. Integrated tuning says you do great vids, screw the trolls, just bad energy. Thank you. Hatchet says Alistair Crowley taught some interesting stuff. Andre Louis says, sounds like Quetzalcoatl's shadow at Chichen Itza Pyramid during the equinox. All connected right. Now, as we know, as we know, I believe on the equinox, the shadow, what happens is at midday or something like that, one of the faces of that pyramid goes blank, I believe. The shadow vanishes from one of the faces, and the same happens at Giza. But also that other property where the shadow of the snake appears to descend the steps of the pyramid, which is just brilliant. And it shows that these pyramids are based on very high mathematics, and it shows it's the same culture. There was someone on Twitter, some archaeologist, he's an archaeologist, and he was saying, a pyramid is just the simplest way of building a structure, so there's no need for lost civilizations. And that was the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. That person's never studied pyramids. And someone says I'm getting the trolls because I'm close over the target. Exactly, I'm over the target. When you're over, that's my favorite phrase. You're copping flack when you're over the target. Yeah. So, and it says Alistair Crowley taught some interesting stuff. I'm sure I bought a biography of his, and yet doesn't seem to have arrived. I don't know. I'd love to know more about this person, because he was very learned, even though he was a complete maniac and a horrible person. I wouldn't do any black magic or any of that. That's rubbish. Anyway, because you don't know what you're doing. That's the thing. We don't know how the universe works. Jody says, 2 female mummies. Oh, Jody, so you're filling us in from earlier, because earlier you were saying, what do you think about the female? What do you think about the? You were asking me a question, and now you're saying 2 female mummies were found near Akhenaten in KV 55. DNA testing revealed the older lady was Queen T, Tut's grandmother, and the younger lady was Tut's mother. But which of Akhenaten's wives is unknown? AP Snake says, and the monkey chew tobacco like Sweet Caroline. Okay. Yes, that's interesting. Very interesting. Walter says, hi Charles, this may be a first for me, catching you live down under. Bruce Cornett. Bruce Cornett! Hey! Bruce, nice. Interesting. So Bruce has written an amazing book on UFOs. I believe it's the best UFO book written. I believe it's better than Jacques Vallée's books. And Cornett has worked with Vallée. I believe he had a patron back in the 90s who was some American millionaire who wanted to put together a UFO society to research UFOs. And he was in this, Vallée was in this, was Hoagland in it. And so Cornett's very well known. He's very famous and in the UFO, the Mars face field. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to have you here, Bruce. Nice. And so check out his latest book. I read it all. It's amazing. It's a very good book. New stuff about UFOs you've never heard. No one's thought to look at, such as the polarization of light. And Bruce is also a PhD in geology, and also was it the study of seeds. Anyway, so Mac Golf says the snake is the healer. It's the animal most connected to Mother Earth. Hatchet says, to have a chat with you would be wild. It would blow my mind. Oh, thanks. Luke Hanlon says, g'day, Bruce Cornett. I'm a fan of your channel. Yeah, Bruce Cornett is amazing. And if you guys remember my moon video, that was a patron video that Bruce asked me to make. And because basically Bruce is a geologist, and he was involved in the Martian face research in the 90s, working with Richard Hoagland. And he saw that on the moon, based on his experience as a geologist, what he is seeing on the moon shouldn't be there if it's just natural forces, and it looks like there's been some artificial tampering. And of course, we know that the moon is very mysterious. We don't know what happened a million years ago on Earth, or even 100,000 years ago. We don't know what happened 10,000 years ago. We don't know what happened 1,000 years ago. Our history is non-existent. So, yeah. So Ape Kills Snake says, snakes would have been a threat to early man in picking fruits from trees, get bitten. Indeed. The Source says Aleister Crowley slept in the pyramid and had a revelation. So did Napoleon. Yeah, it's interesting. So when Napoleon was questioned about this after he left the pyramid, he started talking, and then he stopped talking, and he sort of said, I never want this mentioned again. And then they went on to something else, and obviously they obeyed him because he was literally like their Führer, wasn't he? He was very, very charismatic. All right. So he had some kind of vision or something. So Bruce says that was the Robert Bigelow with NIDS. Steve Hall says Bruce Cornett is the man. Luke says Bruce is amazing. Ape Kills Snake says I have never had so much love. Mac Golf says the Source he's telling the Source, build your own pyramid, your star fort. Brain equals electric heart equals magnet. Andy Boddington says, hey Chuck, enjoying this, but gotta get on with stuff. Remember this thing called projection. There's so much self-loathing in the world, and people are taking it out on others. Yeah, I've actually noticed this. So in the title of the video, I said something about the trolls or something. So I've noticed that whenever the lockdowns accelerate, the trolls on here increase, right? Because people are just flipping out, basically. Luke says, can't post the link, all good. Hatchet says, our history is being destroyed every day. Luke Hanlon says, wow. Vicky North says, what if people are not buried in the pyramids? Maybe the energy was to charge items in the pyramids. Nice. So, by the way, people, so Bruce Cornett's here, and Bruce has done amazing work on the Hudson Valley, the Hudson River UFOs. So feel free to ask him any questions as well in the text box, because he's done epic. He's literally, I think he's the world's best ufologist. Literally, he's right here. So ask him your questions if you want. So this is really nice. Yeah, and his book was very, I found, extremely impressive. The book what do you call it again, Bruce? I forget. It's but all my books. I've dismantled my library because I'm going to build a library outside. I've got no room here. They're all under the bed, so I haven't touched them for a while. But anyway, was it unconventional objects over the Hudson Valley or something like that? The Hudson Valley sightings. Yeah. Anyway. So Werewolf says Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, NASA, Frank Herbert, Dune, and L. Ron Hubbard, Scientology, were all best buddies at Orange Grove. I've never heard of Orange Grove. This is new information, because we've heard of Bohemian Grove and we've heard of Bilderberg. But what is Orange Grove? That's a new one to me. So Bruce Walter Cornett says, Valley worked for Bigelow in 2004. I have my PhD in palynology and paleobotany, fields within geology. Palynology is the study of spores and pollen which resist decay and are preserved in sediment. So there you go. Robin Hood 1966 says, I've researched the aerial school phenomena in 1993 in Africa, where many dozens of school kids saw a UFO land and 4 non-humans that came out. Highly convincing. Yeah. Patrick says, I feel like people feel like I am a troll. I am just full of knowledge and love to share. That's okay, Patrick. We know you're one of the good ones. Ape Kills Snake says, well, the Romans probably mistook the druid-like cult mapping pentagons like in France. And we have another luminary here, Larry Powell, the Great Pyramid AIP, says dawning of the age of Aquarius. And Larry is a also a genius like Bruce, and Larry has met Zahi Hawass many times. Feel free to ask him about that in the text box. There you go. And he runs tours as well. Nice. Patrock says, thanks. Okay, yep. Okay, they're loving each other. And he says he adds no homo because he doesn't want Luke to get the wrong idea. Right. Andy Boddington says, oh yeah, you need to find out about the climate events of 3100 BC or thereabouts. And that's right. That event of 3100 BC explains why the pyramids seem to have been built without any prior knowledge. And in fact, they may have been built because they were scared of that event happening again. So that event was in their memory when they built the pyramids. If Khufu built the pyramids, the main pyramid, they were thinking back to that 500 years earlier. Literally, it was half a millennium, and they thought, what's going to happen in another half a millennium? Is our civilization going to end? So should we enshrine all our knowledge in the Great Pyramid? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. So, right, let's see now. So Scratch says, what if the Great Pyramid was a frequency generator to heal? Heal in the way Royal Raymond Rife used his machine to cure illness. Royal Rife, he was just an incredible engineer. He was a microscope builder, and he simply added lenses to a microscope in order to get electron microscope resolution. He just kept adding lenses, and people say it's mathematically impossible what he's done. You can't do that to light, you'll just get artifacts, but he did do that. And I believe he saw viruses. Is that true? I'm not quite sure. I'd love if there was a biography on him to actually read it. He sounds like he was such a genius. And electric medicine is the way to go, for sure. Electric and also radio frequency medicine is certainly, I believe it's got there's something to it, there's something to it. So Bruce Cornett says, Hudson and Wallkill River valleys of New York, unconventional aerial phenomena in the Hudson and Wallkill River Valley of New York. That is the title of Bruce Cornett's book. Check that out on Amazon. That is an amazing book. So lots of things that you like. He even tells us in that book, things that you think they're a plane, you think it's a plane in the sky. And he's done analysis on this with software to show that some things we think are planes in the skies are actually UFOs disguising themselves as planes, and we don't know what's going on. And that resonated with me because I remember I used to get on the driveway with my brother back when we were smaller, and we'd just stare at the sky and stare at the stars, and with a telescope as well, and we would look up and sometimes I remember we would see planes which just didn't make any noise or didn't seem like planes. And maybe you've seen something like this as well. So Bruce kind of explains a bit of what's going on there, which is, so he's gone beyond many of the UFO researchers. So it's very impressive. Right. So Miles Flynn says, I've read a million words about pyramid energy, but never saw it. Bend a spoon at least or move on. If the pyramids create or concentrate energy, show me how. 99 theories, but energy ain't one. Yeah, you might be correct there. People talk about energy and ley lines as well. It's interesting. I remember, like in England, I was on a tour at Avebury, and the guide had a pair of divining rods, and he wanted to show that when you moved across the stone, you crossed the St. Michael ley line, and he showed that the rods moved, which was quite interesting. And he had a copy of Watkins' book as well. And the problem with the energy theory, though, like that might show water or something, but the problem with the energy theory of ley lines is, or the pyramid is, fine, okay, if they're energy, where can I plug in my toaster? Where can I charge my phone? You can't. So is it actually energy at all? I think ley lines are just roads. They're just ancient, huge roads. So Werewolf says Jack Parsons, born in Los Angeles. Parsons was raised to be a wealthy family on Orange Grove Avenue in Pasadena. Inspired by science fiction literature, he developed an interest in rockets. Bruce Cornett says, it is now 6 a.m. in Texas. Nice, you're up quite early. Nice, and you're in Texas, which is I imagine it's I was only in Texas at the airport, and it was quite warm, and I saw cowboys at the airport. They had the big hats, like huge guys, cowboy hats, and yeah, wow. Ryan Davis, good morning, Doc. How you been? Morning to you, Ryan. I've been absolutely great. I hope you and everyone else have been great as well. The source. So earlier on, someone told Luke, no homo. And the source is clarifying this further, saying, if you're not homo, it's not human. Right. Okay, so maybe there is a possibility for homo in that relationship. There we go. So the source has, given you a bit of room to work with, guys. Anyway. Right. Okay. So RTOD says, string theory says multiple dimensions. What's more likely? All aliens in an ineffably large universe are here on Earth. All the aliens have always been here because they are interdimensional beings. Yeah, I think that they're interdimensional. Bruce, however, who is here, and you can ask him a question, says they are probably they are aliens. That's what you're saying, Bruce. They are aliens, and yeah, I respect that view totally, because Bruce is very, very clever. So Barry says, too many focused on how pyramids were built. Look at why. It must have benefited the masses somehow. Okay, Patrick and Luke are talking about drugs and homo. Interesting. Just kidding. So Robin Hood 1966 says 3100 BC, Keufel's meteorite impacts in Austria on a Sumerian tablet. Really? I didn't know that. That's wow. That's interesting. In Austria, something just occurred to me, guys. You know the Aurea Linda book? If you read that, it mentions the catastrophe in about that time, and it actually says all of Germany was burnt up. And it's the only source anywhere. It appears to me to be done from medieval chronicles. It's the only source anywhere that says Germany was all burnt up and destroyed. Presumably why we can't see any ancient ruins in Germany. The meteor hit Germany. That's very interesting. And now you're saying the impact was in Austria. Wow. That's very interesting. So RTOD says the ancient gods were real, they were here, and they may still be here now. Nice. Lady Zargo is saying, have you heard of the King's List? Ryan says Khufu may have repurposed it as a tomb, but it certainly has two different type stonework inside. Yeah, repurpose is probably the correct word, Ryan. Yeah. Goizim Reagan says, what about the pyramids on Mars? Are they connected to the ones we have on Earth? So that's a question for Bruce if he's still here. Patrick says, hey, thanks for the smiles and good morning, man. Well, been up a day, but the rain's melting the snow as the sun circles around here in Kentucky. Luke says, can't share the link, Patrick. RTOD says, Great Pyramid was likely a Tesla generator. Stone circles are likely receiving stations. Ape Kill Snake says, they say Mars used to be like Earth. Perhaps we were visited by Martians when Venus ripped that planet up. Patrick says, this is my only social media anymore. Never check VK. Ben Morrison says the pictures on the wall overlap. Yeah, why not? That's my style. That's my way of doing it. Overlap. So Walter Cornett, who's Bruce, says, true, UAP have plasma lights, not lamps. They try, so this is UFOs, try to mimic jet sounds, but because of metamaterials, anti-gravity hulls, the sounds become reversed Doppler. That characteristic was recorded many times. So one of the things that Bruce has pioneered in his book, as he's mentioning here, is yes, you've talked about reverse Doppler shift. So basically, the UFO is mimicking a Doppler shift of an airplane when it's pretending to be an airplane. And you said when you analyzed this with software, you found it was actually being played back the wrong way around. And that is a massive clue towards solving, because why is it taking something and playing it back in reverse? That is a massive clue towards one day solving the UFO mystery. I mean, that's an amazing thing you've discovered. Like, no UFO researcher does this. You know, this is amazing. Yeah, that's amazing, Bruce. So, yeah. So, as to the energy, the ley line, Scratch says, I've videoed what I can only describe as energy, only seen in near infrared on the St. Michael's ley line at West Kennet Long Barrow. Oh, that's right. You've given us your, you've given us that. No, I watched your video, but I can't remember if I saw the energy in the video. But I watched your video as you're driving home, and also the other video. But I can't remember if I saw that. But yeah, that's awesome. Nice. So Bruce says the aliens are here, living mostly in underground and undersea bases. Scratch says, I also feel the energy there and have done since I was a kid, and way before I even understood what kind of energy could be. Patrick says mushrooms, Mustang convertible, and electric tube lights cranking Beastie Boys. Happened in America when we were free. Good times. No, that sounds really nice. Right. Robin Hood says it took 200 foot off the top of a mountain. Oh, you're talking about the, I forget the name. It's a plateau that's in Chariots of the Gods. That flat plateau in Peru, is it? Peru or Bolivia? No, it's in Bolivia. But I forgot what it's called. Yeah, that's a great mystery, that one. But actually mounds, you know these burial mounds in Europe, not burial mounds, but ceremonial harvest hill mounds, they have flat tops as well because they were important, putting a maypole on. I don't know why I mentioned that, but there you go. Yeah. So Lady Zaga says, Salvator Mundi, a 600-year-old painting by Leonardo da Vinci, had just sold for 450 million. It was the most expensive painting ever sold at auction. November 17, 2017. Wow. Impressive. And Lady Zaga goes on to say, a painting of Jesus holding a transparent ball. That's interesting. That's kind of like Jesus as a magician, because there are traditions of Jewish prophets from Egypt. And they became prophets, and they tried to convert many. And they one in AD 60s, who was mentioned in the book of Acts, called the Egyptian. He actually, I believe, that scenario eventually became Jesus kind of storming Jerusalem, where he was welcomed as a prophet and then killed a few days later, because that's what the Egyptian did in history. He did that, and he, with his followers, he tried to take over Jerusalem, literally, and then he vanished, and he was never seen again. So maybe killed in a back alley or something, or someone robbed him, or his followers killed him, or who knows, or he suicided somewhere and no one found the body. Lady Zaga says, okay, I've read that, okay. Patrick says, hey, Charles, 20 bucks is 20 bucks. Sure is. Yeah, okay. So, Apekill Snake says, interesting. There is code inside that painting. Right. Fascinating stuff. All right. So, Reinhard has mentioned my book. He says, in your excellent book, Origin of the Pyramids, I found it fascinating in chapter 5, page 247, when you mentioned Old Europe and Kurgans. That's right. So Kurgan is the East European name for barrow or tumulus. or mound. They're called kurgans in East European literature, Central European literature. And of course, that's also a name of a tribe of southern Russia. And yes, basically the pyramid cult originated in Eurasia. It must have originated in Eurasia. They're the earliest ideas of it. In fact, I believe Göbekli Tepe is the earliest pyramid cult because they buried everything as if it was a pyramid. And they left flints in there, I believe, for the technology god Loki, to say thank you to Loki for the technology, because I believe Khnum, also being the technology god, is the reason the Khufu pyramid was built. It's kind of a world mountain for Khnum, I think. Anyway, what do you guys think? So Robin Hood, and thanks for reading up to 2-page. I think have you read the lot? It gets a bit too wordy. I would have written it shorter if I wrote it again, but thanks for reading so much of it. That's amazing, right now. Yeah, it's very flattering too. So Robin Hood says, I have a book written about the tablet and the impact trail that came low gradient from Saudi Arabia. Gas trail flamed out from Giza, Israel, up to Austria. We'll DM you the info. Thank you. I want to know about that, because it seems to me the Aurea Linda book recorded this as a great catastrophe. And I believe the Aurea Linda book, I'm familiar with many medieval manuscripts. I did a PhD in medieval manuscripts. And when I read the Aurea Linda book, I don't see a fake forgery. I see the same pattern as in medieval manuscripts, which is copying by monks and adding information as you go, building a legend like a snowball. I see that pattern in the Aurea Linda book. It's obviously many different sources. It's not one guy making stuff up. But if one guy stitched together in maybe 100 years before the manuscript was discovered, does that really mean it's a forgery, or is he just the latest person to play with the information, the pre-existing information? Atlas says the gods were the planets. RTOD says the biblical flood was due to the Younger Dryas. Ancient America was the main target of the YD comet. Much ancient structures discovered in North America too. Reinhard von Holst says Kurgan was the name of the bad guy in Highlander. He was indeed. Mac Golf says, okay, okay, he wants to know about that channel. Okay. Patrick says, I have seen pretty damn close what some call a UFO, completely sober. Lady Zaga says, that is what Napoleon saw in the pyramid and instructed about, hence why he proclaimed himself emperor. Someone says, we are speaking of UAP. I do believe Salvatore Cesar Pei and his inventions need to be mentioned. He has released all the information and has open patent available for viewing. Who is this man? Is he? Who is he? I don't know about him. Andre Louis says, what is Bruce's channel? He wants to know Bruce Cornett's channel, so I'll find it now and I'll link it. Bruce Cornett. His channel, I believe, is just called Bruce Cornett. Yeah, that's it. So I'll link it. Scratches linked it as well. Okay, great. Scratches linked another video. Okay, so I've linked that. Good. Okay, to Bruce's channel. Right. Yeah. Atlas says King's List is astrological, not actual kings. Nice. So Bruce says yes. Energy waves become reverted due to negative refraction. UAP can move in our matter. Without interacting with matter, air and water moves around hull with no resistance. So you see how smart he is. So for those just tuning in, Bruce Cornett is here. We've talked about him in videos and showed some of his information in videos because it's amazing information. So feel free to ask him any questions in the text if he's still here. I'm not sure. So Patrick says, I was scanned, completely silent. Bright red light that went to a light point flew to me. Saw the beautiful metal layered disc and design. I was so excited, scanned me, and flew away. Wow. Ryan says UAPs are 100% real, but I don't know anyone can explain what they are or who or where. Luke Hanlon says, Andrew Louis, just search his name. Yeah, just search his name and you'll find his channel. It's quite interesting. Right. So I'm just going to a more lengthy comment. Okay, here we go. So RTOD says Göbekli Tepe was a Tesla receiving station where you would plug in your toaster. It was not buried purposely. It was buried by sediment during the Great Flood, as were the tunnels in Bosnia. Yeah, you might be onto something, because the tunnels in Bosnia do seem to have mud flood evidence. That's beyond question. There's some kind of mud flood evidence there. And I actually uncovered evidence when I was at Uluru and at nearby Katachuka, back to my Uluru videos, that these were covered in mud as well. Because I'm not a geologist, but I can see quite clearly they're actually covered in a type of very soft rock, which is not basalt. It's actually a very crumbly type of sediment. You can see they were covered in a layer of mud, especially Katachuka, which is a kind of, it looks almost like a mud. It's not even rock; it's mudstone. It's mudstone. There was mudslides on a mountain. Like, why is there a mudslide on a mountain? That's what I don't quite understand. It's quite interesting, you know. The geology is not what they say. I can see that, you know, as a scientist, I can see that, even though I'm not a geologist. Ryan Davis says, I've watched a few live streams on YouTube, but no one does it better than me. Thank you so much. He reads the topics and discusses them together. No one else is that dedicated. Oh, thank you so much. Yes. Someone says, the decision of UAP would completely change. Well, the reason I look up I read your comments is, what else would I talk about? So someone says the decision of UAP would completely change if you looked up Salvatore Cesar Pay right now. Like, look into what he has released. Salvatore Cesar Pay's patents. Okay, I'm going to Google it right now, because you've made a convincing case that we should look it up. And there's the Google patents. They're on Google. And craft using an inertial mass reduction device. Piezoelectricity-induced high-temperature superconductor, high-frequency gravitational wave generator. Okay, I'm going to link that. It's okay, I've linked it. You can have a look and tell me what you think. Interesting. Right. Right. So, yes. English Bob says, I've seen quite a few UFOs, and I've also been abducted many times in my life. Interesting, but would that be in Europe? Because it seems to me it doesn't happen in Europe. It happens in America. And I'm wondering why it just happens in America. And it happens in Brazil too. It happens in Brazil a lot. But it doesn't really happen too much elsewhere for some reason. So that's why I was thinking it was something Earth-related, but I don't know. I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, so I had a girlfriend in Michigan, and at the campfire, we were making s'mores. And she doesn't start with ghost stories. She starts with UFO abduction stories that have happened to her. Many stories. So there's something going, and that wouldn't happen here in Australia. That wouldn't happen ever. That wouldn't happen in. It's an American phenomenon. What's happening with America? Tell me what's going on with America. Right. Anyway. So Bruce says, there was an Apex webinar yesterday with 3 great speakers who are trying to understand UAP and anti-gravity. Even Dr. Jack Sarfassi was live answering questions. We are close to understanding how. Awesome, awesome. That's wow. So Bruce Cornett and his colleagues are at the forefront of UFO research at the moment, and he's right here. So ask him a question. Yes. So Atlas James says, hey, Charles, what are your thoughts on electric universe theory? A theory that explains the gods, cataclysms, ancient technologies, basically mythology is real history. Mate, electric universe theory is 100% true. It is a genius theory. I have a brother who's a physicist. He's a genius, and he's a lecturer as well. And he says, yeah, it's he studied cosmology, and he says it's electric universe. It's, it makes a lot of sense. And people are not into it because it involves a fundamental shift from blackboard, playing with the blackboard, and not playing with themselves, and playing with facts, playing with someone else, doing laboratory experiments, and getting out in the field. Well, I have a lot of problems with a lot of cosmological things. Like, for example, I mentioned in the previous live stream, neutron stars. So I actually had a chemical, because I'm a chemist, I had a chemical theory about black holes. Could they actually be, since they're black, could they be carbon nanoparticles coating a copper, gold, silver ball, which is obviously very heavy, maybe some uranium in there as well. Obviously, it's electrical, so you could have a magnetic charge around it. And it's black, you can't see it because it's coated in carbon due to electric sparking. Electric sparking is how you create carbon nanotubes, and it's the blackest substance in the universe. So I'm thinking, okay, I've come up with a chemical explanation for black holes. Why are we fiddling with these exotic matter explanations when we don't need it? We have chemistry, So these cosmologists, they are not as smart as they seem. Trust me on this. They are just, they are people with almost an autism level of interest in one particular little thing and nothing else. And so they're not as smart as they seem. They are just good at what they do, but everyone's good at what they do, but they're just good at this little one thing. And I reckon they've taken the media for a ride, honestly. Anyway. And of course, Apophasis the large man, the photographer, you all know his channel. He has 230,000 subscribers, and he has a brilliant black hole theory showing that he shows how it's magnetic and how magnetic toroidal, and he's got all these complicated words all the time, and you want to understand him, you have to watch 5 of his videos, and you still don't understand because there's no glossary for these words. Anyway. So Mark says your enthusiasm and dedication are much appreciated. Thank you, Mark. Patrox says, smile, everyone. Love is the frequency of intelligent beings. You are an intelligent being. Atlas says, was a completely different place in ancient times, hence the reason why ancients worshipped the planetary bodies. They were much closer. Oh. Wouldn't it look wonderful if the planets were closer? I remember Mars came so close. Do you remember in 2003 it came so close? And it looked almost like it was going to turn into a disk. You would almost see the disk. It was so close. It looked incredible. I loved it. I wish it was that close all the time. It would be so good. Okay. So Bruce says, how UAP work. The hulls of UAP are the engines. Open space inside UAP. Nice. Mr. Kim Smith says, there are 2 floods mentioned in the Bible. So many people confuse them as the one flood, Noah's flood. One flood destroyed all life, dinosaurs and all. Noah's flood didn't destroy all life. Bingo. I didn't realize that, but that makes so much sense. And this is how legends work. They pile onto each other. For example, the wicked Pharaoh. I believe the wicked Pharaoh, a lot of what you're reading about the wicked Pharaoh is probably Khufu. But there was another wicked Pharaoh later on who was oppressing Jews, and probably Khufu was also oppressing people. I reckon Khufu was oppressing 3rd dynasty people, because the 3rd dynasty, they were obviously more Jewish than the 4th dynasty, because they were, the 3rd dynasty are more Mesopotamian, slightly more Mesopotamian, sounds like a chemical element. And the 4th dynasty are more Chinese. They're building Chinese-style pyramids. So, yeah, anyway. Patrox says, we're in Michigan. Oh, we were camping in lots of places. So we were camping up north as well with the wolves in the UP, in the Upper Peninsula, with the wolves and the bears and all that, right? and we saw the Paulding light, and which seems to be traffic, but I believe generating the lights. But it seems to me there's another explanation for that for sure. And yeah, that was fun. Yeah. Lady Zaga says, I think the atmosphere was different and the sun was black, so the light was purple and more oxygen. Cyrus says Americans are being tested on. Megatronic Soundwave says, greetings from Scotland. Greetings, Megatronic. English Bob says, all I can say about UFOs is I'm in England and it has happened to me many times. It's a worldwide phenomenon. Werewolf says, have you noticed pretty much every field of study is knocking on the door of its holy grail? Weird. Lady Zaga says, there you go. Why not a black sun? So you're referring to a black hole as a black sun. That's an interesting theory. In that respect, the black sun, which was also worshipped by some German cults before World War II, and that was also in Himmler's room at Wewelsburg Castle, the room of the high SS officers. It's right in the middle. I made a video like 5 years ago about this. So I visited that place. It's very, very interesting, actually. And you know what? The energy there, you'd expect it to be evil energy. You'd expect it to feel the ghosts of all the slave workers who died there. Actually, it's just an organic. It feels like the energy of growth, of life. It feels like Mother Earth lives there. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's strange. So someone said Salvatore Cesar's Pais's work should really be looked into. It would answer quite a bit of the UAP question. It even reverts back to Admiral Byrd in Project High Jump. It's crazy how it all ties together. Gypsy Wade says, hi everyone. Hey Gypsy Wade. Emu Cat says, if it's an electric, where is it? If it's an electric universe, the Goldilocks band in solar systems isn't as relevant. Right. Interesting. Looking for a longer comment. So Bruce says, I love your work, Charles. You have made important and relevant observations about our ancestors and their stone creations. Thank you so much, Bruce. We love each other's work, you know. Because I always thought that Jacques Vallée is the best UFO author. It's actually now it's Bruce Cornett because he's written his book, and I hope you write more books, Bruce. I mean, like, wow, yeah. So check out Bruce's book. I really recommend that if you're into UFOs. So Rem Kohosi says, greetings from the Netherlands. Greetings, cheers, up for please, and all those words you say. I don't know, I've forgotten it all. Yeah, greetings from the Netherlands. RTOD says, death, more oxygen in the past. Love the screen name Bob from an old movie. Lady Zaga says, the Black Sun is also part of First Nation teachings. And Atlas follows this up by saying, Black Sun is Saturn. All right. Nice. Lance Ward says, Charles, did you get to catch up on the Aurora Borealis when you was in the UP? So that's the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. No, so we was there not in winter, but in May, June. And Michigan's actually quite interesting because from there we drove down to the Serpent Mound, Ohio, and it was like it was like a different world, Ohio, because suddenly the roads are a lot better, if you don't mind me saying so. The cars are smaller. People have just small city cars instead of trucks. Wow, on the freeway, lots of bikers, but your question, okay, I'm going off on a tangent. Your question was, did you catch up on the Aurora? No, I didn't see it. No, we were only there for a few days, like 4 days, I think, in the UP. 3 days, I'm not sure. We went to see the Paulding Light, and also to look for King Solomon's Mines, and also to look for that, you know, right at the top of the UP, that town, and to look for where the Viking ship was drawn on a rock. And we asked a local, and she's never heard of it. And apparently the locals don't want to talk about it because they don't want it destroyed or something, or I don't know, there's something going on. So we obviously spoke to the wrong locals. We couldn't find it. So there you go. But yeah, no, didn't see any aurora. So Reinhard says, Black Sun, Wewelsburg Castle is my avatar on YouTube and on Google. Yeah. Yeah, Reinhard, did you see my video on the Black Sun? Just put my videos into reverse and you'll see my videos on Black Sun on Wewelsburg, like, you know, oldest first or something, if you've seen it, I don't know. I visited in 2012 and I didn't know the Himmler room was open. We didn't know that. It had only been open since 2009. So when it was open, because I had read that it was always shut. So when we got there and the room is open, there's no one, the room's open. Oh my God, we raced up the stairs. And then the Black Sun room, jumped on the Black Sun. And if you we were sort of sitting there meditating and I was thinking, yeah, you can feel the energy. It feels like a spiraling energy when you're sitting on it or standing on it. And the funniest thing, as I mentioned in my book, happened. What happened then was, we were in there for like half an hour, and so all around this room where the SS officers met, you can see out the windows, and it's this beautiful countryside far away outside the small windows, beautiful countryside far away, rolling hills. Then some, like a German tour group went into the room, and the tour guide, this is really strange, the tour guide basically, it was a she, and there were bean bags around the room. And they all sat on bean bags, and they all whatever was said. And at the end of the session, they all picked up their bean bags and started piling them on top of the Black Sun in the middle of the room, like as if they were trying to cancel out the demonic energy or something. And I was like, what is going on here? What the hell is going on? And my friend said, yeah, it's a bit strange. And then she said they were trying to cancel out the energy which wasn't supposed to be there. You know, they do the same thing at lots of ancient sites. At Wawel in Poland, which is another ancient Wawel, right? Wawel in Poland, there is the eighth chakra of the world, and they've actually blocked it off so you can't get there. So everyone's pressing against the wall to get to the chakra, and the wall's black from everyone pressing on it, you know, to feel the energy on top of the mountain. Yeah, so Scratch says also black holes allegedly cannot exist in an electric universe. David Hill says, if there is no oxygen in space, how do you explain the sun being a ball of fire? There you go. Well, you know what? Look, I'll tell you how. No, it was never coal. In the 19th century, if you look up, I just read a book on this. In the 1850s, Lord Kelvin said the sun must be 20,000 or 20 million, no more than 20 million to 100 million years old, and all of its energy is being derived from a comet, a vortex, a stream of meteors and asteroids spiraling into it and impacting into it, and it's releasing that energy. Or it's a hot body releasing energy, in which case it is also can't be that old. So the universe cannot be more than several million years old. Well, the sun cannot be more than several million years old, and therefore the Earth cannot be more than several million years old. And since the 1830s, geologists had been saying, no, we need about a few 100 million years or a billion years to explain all this. And the physicists the physicist argument carried the day because of Lord Kelvin, William Thomson, until about 1900 when they discovered radium, when Marie Curie discovered radium. And then someone wrote to the Science Journal and said, well, hang on a second, maybe the sun's got radium, we can explain it. And more people started writing in, and they said, no, it's not radium. I don't see radium in the solar spectrum. And then they started realizing, oh, we can play with hydrogen and radiation in this way. Anyway, so they never thought it, David, they never thought it was coal burning. So they didn't, it wasn't the oxygen. It was, they thought it was impacts, a vortex stream of impacts smacking into the sun. So Ape Kill Snake says, how beautiful is the past? So someone is still talking about this inventor. Giant Secrets, hello, says other planets have aurora as well because Birkeland currents are electric. So Lance is correcting me, and he says, oh, thank you, The Source, for your contribution. Very nice of you. Thank you, sir. So Lance is saying in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So is Grand Rapids so you're in Grand Rapids, or is that where the is that where the I felt like we were almost driving to the Arctic when we went to the top of, but it's not even Canada, you know. So, when we went to the top of the top of Michigan, top of the UP. Anyway, so someone loves the name of the source. Reinhardt says will do. Tar. Mario says I think we live in an electric plasma universe. We do. And look, all clever people say that. Well, most of them. And if you don't, I don't want to offend you. Steve Hall says, "Black hole sun, won't you come?" T. White says, "Have you heard of quantum tunneling and how life is reliant on this phenomena?" I have not, sir. Patrock says, "If you had multiple drones, electromagnets, strings, and remote power supplies and controls with different elements, you could make one hell of a light show." Werewolf says, "Also, yes, Birkeland currents." Scratch says, "Look for videos by Wal Thornhill if you're interested in electric universe theory." Lady Zaga says, "I'm in Toronto, originally from central Quebec. We all Aurora Borealis, Northern Lights." Angela says, "Morning, handsome." Hello. Patrock says, "Hey, lady, ever go to the North Pole?" RTOD says, "If you could meet the creator of The Matrix, would you?" I'm not that much into that movie, I'm afraid. But would other people do that? Interesting. Ape Kills Snake says the sun is electric. T. White says the sun is powered by fusion. If it was burning its content, it would have gone out millions of years ago. Yeah. David says, "Thanks again, Charles." Patrock says, "Mount Meru." Giant Secret says, "Because when the solar wind mixes with the electricity and the sun's outer atmosphere, it turns into plasma." Someone says, "Really is a disservice to talk about UAPs and not talk about their investor. Guess people just want to keep the myth going." RTO, The Mountain says, "Love the cheetah painting." Yeah, it's a print of a. And there's actually, the reason I got it is there's actually an ancient ruin over there, and it's next to an ancient ruin. Like, I was actually bidding on a painting in an auction, and it was from the early 19th century, like two shepherds next to a massive vase, which was bigger than they are, showing, this was a theme of the 1820s to show ancient ruins. So, and I was bidding on this, and it went over almost $500, and I thought, I don't have this money. But so instead I've got this cheap print, but there you go, Anyway, yes, my dining room, my dining table. Anyway, so Amanda Fuller says, "Where do you think the totem pole, aka Axis Mundi, originated?" The staff god. So the staff god. Oh, thank you, Lance Ward. He says, "Appreciate your time and work." Thank you so much, Lance. The staff god. So there is an anthropologist called Maria Gimbutas, and she has been writing books. She's dead now. She's Lithuanian, and she's been writing books about old Europe, and even with a bit of a female perspective. One of them was called "The Goddesses and Gods of Old Europe." And I sort of put two and two together, and I realized this religion is the Old Kingdom religion in Egypt. And she didn't really mention this, and I realized this is the pyramid religion. What she's describing is the pyramid religion. And one of the gods, firstly, there's a bird triple goddess. There's a great mother goddess. There's a stick staff god, which is interesting as well. And there's also a snake goddess as well, which is those reptile ubaid things that people see and they think, oh, these reptilians, but no, they're just a snake goddess. And so one of them is the staff god, and I noticed the staff god points to the four compass points. It's a four-faced god. Giza, they point to the four-faced. This is a replacement for a totem pole staff god. That's what a pyramid is. It's a replacement for the staff god. So that's what it is. That's one of the things that it is. It's so many different things, It's amazing. Marie McLaughlin says cheetah. Is it a cheetah? I don't know. I call it gay cat because it looks a bit gay. I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway. Right. Cheetah is Charles' spirit animal. Oh, my spirit animal was hyena. So I went to the, I think it's hyena, because I was at Ballarat Lake once. This is an Aboriginal lake where the Aborigines used to meditate. And they used to go there for religious rituals. And I was just sitting there, and I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay there forever. So, because I basically decided to go into a trance and look at the water when I did that. And when you go into the trance, it's basically stilling the waters of the mind so you can get images coming in, images flooding in. And then I saw basically like a hyena bouncing around, and I thought, oh, that must be the spirit animal. Is that the spirit animal? Is that how you find a spirit animal, right? And I thought, okay, so that can be the hyena. Okay, so there you go. Right. So, right. Patrock says Goodwill auction or eBay. No. It was an auction, like an auction place, furniture auction place. You know, they sell, and that's where that's from as well. But that was part of a package of a bunch of other junk, because I've got so much old junk, you know. So my house looks very 70s as a result. But there you go. But it's older than that anyway. So thanks again, Lance. So Mr. Kim Smith says the friendly pharaoh during Joseph's time was an Israelite. During Moses' life, different dynasty. Yeah, I reckon the 4th dynasty. I reckon that's what the story's from. The pharaoh made the Israelites slaves. The pharaoh wasn't an Israelite. Those Israelites were, obviously, yeah. And you see, this Jewish story is explaining that the dynasties are actually different races. And you see this in the architecture. You see that, for example, the whole layout at Giza is different to the Zoser layout. It's a different people. It's a different type of pyramid building people. Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably go to sleep in about 10 minutes, so we'll wind it up then. But I'll answer a few more questions until then. Yes, and we'll keep talking. So Werewolf says, T. White channel, see the pattern. Biological transmutation sounds quantum. Check it out. Kim Smith says foreigners took over Egypt for a brief period. Yeah. Nice. RTOD says your name on the Book of Life may be your DNA. Don't mess with your DNA. Mary McLaughlin says, "Ha, proud gay cat." Yeah, yeah. He's very proud. Gypsy says, I just walked back in at gay cat. Scratch says, I think mine's a sloth. Right. Reinhardt says, oh, there's a cool question that I came across a week ago. If we create AI machines and they can create their own avatars and AI machines, could we all be living in the Matrix? That's what DNA is. That's what we're already doing. Biology has done what you are describing. So biology is working with physics to do what we have described. And actually biology. So my brother came up with a brilliant explanation for why why the moon is the same size as the sun from the Earth. And the reason is its size in relation to the sun has been modified by a speculative creature living on the Earth for billions of years, which has gradually brought them into alignment through telepathic power, mental powers. Makes a lot of sense to me. I like that explanation. Someone's White Spice says, "Is the totem on the wall an ancient artifact?" No, it's just it's the same from an auction I mentioned. So I put a string there, a wire there, and to hang it up. And it's for tourists. I think. I'm not sure how old it is. I have no idea how old this thing is. I don't know if it's, but I imagine it's for tourists. It's got nothing written on it. It's just painted black. It's probably something from the 20th century. Because, in the 20th century, early 20th century, like art was very sought after and primitive art and all that. Yeah. David says, you may have fallen into a new venue for your great content. How about Charles Cost tonight? We are your guests. Yeah, maybe I should just do that instead, actually. That would be just weekly. That would be easier. That would be a lot easier than making videos. I tell you what. Yeah, anyway. So Trevor says, are the cone heads still alive? I've never seen one. It looks like it was an extremely recessive characteristic, but I've seen, once I saw like So at the beach, there's penguins, right? And there's overseas tourists. And I saw a Swedish girl, and the blondes from Europe are much bigger than the blondes over here, and not only larger, but like taller, but very glamorous. Big head, not a cone head, but big head. So I was thinking, if there are cone heads, you still see big-headed people around. Apparently, there's a few of them in India around. Some of the religious people have very large heads, and you see them. I don't know where else you see them. You might still see some Africans with large heads if they're mixed in with the Boskop people from South Africa. Yeah. RTOD says, my spirit animal is an a-hole. Right, okay, that's a bit unfortunate, RTOD. Damn. Trevor Topham says, okay, I've read that one. Patrick says, thanks. Be safe out there or here or wherever you are. Scratch says, even if it's not anything important, it's a good way to remember how big they both are. Patrick says, the moon is 30 miles wide, the sun 33 miles wide. Patrick, I'm not quite sure that's true, but okay. Godzilla says Old Man Rothschild has a cone head. Steve McGill says, hey Steve. Isaac Hernandez says, what was your show when you were in Awesome Channel? What's that? What's that? Oh, I was calling this Ancient Mystery, this YouTube program. Ruhiger says, hey, you see large-scaled people in the Pakras aside from the conehead type. Pakras coneheads contained non-human interdimensional DNA. Andrew Moore says, ask Brian. He knows all the answers. Take no notice regarding trolls. We give him too much attention. Cool. Scratch says, I've got a big melon, lol. RTOD says, my spirit animal keeps me humble. If I had a better one, I might be insufferable. Nice. Well, we might wrap it up there. And I hope everyone's had a great time. It's nearly 2 hours. And I'm going to head off to bed, I guess. And I hope everyone's had a wonderful time. We've explored so much. We've had Bruce, if you're just tuning in, you can watch it again. We've had Bruce Cornett on here. We've had Larry Parl here briefly. And it's been absolutely awesome. We've talked about so many exciting things. And I'll see you soon in another video. And thanks for being here. It's been really cool. Thanks for watching my videos. Thanks to the patrons. Thanks to people who gave me a bit of cash now. That's been really nice of you guys. And yes, I'll say see you to people. See you, Reinhardt. Ta-ta for now. See you, Steve. See you, Heretic. Trevor, Lance, Citito. Hey, Citito, I'm logging off, but hey. Mark, take care, all the best. Lance, Gypsy, Scratch. Yeah, take care, everyone. And I'll see you another time. Bye-bye.